Happy to be here. It's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. It gets better every day because it's getting richer every day by everybody's comments, contributions, support, and the better we can make it for everyone, the better it'll be for each other. And that just builds on that. So chat's open. Always depend on that to direct us and to make us as relevant as we can in the moment. And with that said, I'm so happy to have Kelly with us. And we've got a new guest who isn't new to us, just new to the screen, because Danny's been doing some fabulous commenting. I've had a chance to talk with him. Very, very bright and forward-looking. So, I'm building expectation before Danny has a chance to say a word. So with that, Kelly, I'll turn it over to you, and then Danny can have a little time to share a little bit about who he is and what everybody thinks about the initial thought of proactive. Kelly?
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. So the word proactive, very interesting. And honestly, my immediate thought to that went to, on the business realm, I've worked in a lot of startups. And one of the phrases that's very common in that space is, we're reactive, we're not proactive. And because they're running on lean teams, they're running fast, and they kind of do that fail fast philosophy. We're figuring it out as we go. So we're running in this direction and then pivoting. But being reactive to maybe things like customer service issues or product issues, until they get to a place where they can actually start to expand and grow, to be like, hey, now we need somebody to come in and be proactive with standard operating procedures or, policies, those sorts of things. And then I also thought a really great example that we can all totally relate to at some point in our life is, being proactive is about something in the future that you have control over. What can you do to accomplish this goal? And I thought, back in school, we had a choice of being proactive to study because I wanted to do well on a test, because I wanted to have a good GPA so I could get into a good university or get a scholarship. So I just think that's something everybody can relate to, in the sense of, I can be proactive and study to do something good on a future event that I want to achieve a specific goal. And I'm excited to see where this word goes today. I mean, every time we do any of them or I'm listening, it always takes a left turn somewhere along the way, which is always just fun and makes it more interesting for everyone. So, and Danny, we're so excited to have you here. And thank you, Harvey, for introducing Danny to the Hour of Empower. So Danny, with all of that being said, I will turn it over to you and get a little intro on yourself and your thoughts on proactive.
Well, hello, everybody. It's about 4:00 in the afternoon here. So good morning to the rest of the world, and good evening to everybody that's on this side of the pond. My name's Danny, and thank you for the introduction. Forward thinking would imply that I too am proactive, I take, Don. So I'm looking forward to see where this conversation goes. A bit of background about me. I'm an organizational psychologist, and I work to help organizations understand what's the most appropriate, conducive environment to create high-performing teams. So how do people get out of their own way and head in the right direction? And for me, when it comes to proactivity, I think there's two definitions that spring to mind. One is the traditional, where are we going and how do we do things in advance to kind of make the future our own and be the change we want to see. But the second is also, how do we take ownership for ourselves so that we're not apportioning blame for when there's a bump in the road, that we're not pointing at the referee for calling a wrong foul. We can play better. So hopefully that's a bit of insight.
Well, I think that's wonderful. And, that's why it's so important to get initial thoughts, because then you can measure at the end of the show what your new thought or additions to your thought were. And everything's contextual. Everything is how you apply it, how you package it, how you present it. The word is the gift. but the response is what you're looking for. The reaction, the hopefully appreciation, you know, and have you done everything you can to deliver it in the safest, healthiest way that allows it to be digested and responded to in another positive way, because that's being proactive in a conversation. Your first word will be the proactive element. You know, if you say hello or don't say hello, right? If you slam a door versus have a smile. So, you know, you have to plan your interactions, because you really have to ask yourself, how many interactions am I going to have today? I mean, how many people am I going to be face to face with in a situation that I can't come up with the best word at the beginning, you know, and let them see what they come up with? Because you never want to say it was me when I could have known better or done better. So with that said, I want to recognize the great audience. Ashif is here. Ashif is just so incredible with his quotes and how he aligns his quotes, so it's not the same quote for anything. This is a new gentleman, 11 p.m. where you're at, so it must be further east. Christine's here. Christine's starting to come a little bit here and there. I am being more proactive with my career, seeking out mentors, stretch projects, leadership opportunities. You know, how long does it take you to start? And that's what proactive is. How long does it take you to get up and do something that you've been planning on doing, wanting to do, but never doing? And it's always at that like need to do this list. And it's about saying, hey, I got time, I'll do it. You know, you get away from the like into the do. Yeah. Because if you wait to like something you don't like, you'll never do it. Jeff is here. Thanks Jeff for coming. It's great to see you. Renada, I hope I pronounced it right. Good morning. Great to see you. Nicole's here, who's going to actually be here with Leslie Flowers. So I can't wait for that combo. So happy to have you, Nicole. Nicole has a beautiful story and is a beautiful person and is really involved with the Hounds, which, you know, I'm into open doors. I'm into, you know, the best for everybody, all for one, one for all, because it works. You know, you can't be together against something bigger than all of us, then have like ownership. You know, I think nobody's owns, nobody is on lease, everybody's free. And I think by expressing that, you get the best for everybody. And you know what? People know what they know. People feel what they feel. Why not allow that and actually encourage that? You know, people will come back if there's something worth coming back to. Renaa Deb says, without being proactive, nothing much can be accomplished. Well, it's better than being reactive, because then you're always on defense, right? If you're not taking the ball to the other team, you're sitting there getting the ball taken to you. And is that where you always want to start? You know, you can go forward and get pushed back. Well, that's the way it goes, but you shouldn't start back and get pushed back. So with that, Kelly, I mean, this is pretty interesting how proactive can align with so many other things.
Yeah, and which ultimately it's all about action, right? And I think, you know, just the word reactive, and it does just remind me from being, again, involved in so many startups specifically, is being reactive is exhausting. You know, when you're learning something, it generally is part of the process, being reactive, because it's like, oh, I didn't even see that coming. But now I've got to adjust and figure it out. So being proactive, like people showing up here, it's part of a choice, right? Where we have a goal in mind, and I'm going to be proactive because I want to accomplish XYZ. And in order for me to accomplish that, I need to start doing something. I need to put a plan in place. I need to think about what I need to maybe avoid, you know, so you need to look at it more big picture, you know. Great example for here on LinkedIn, connecting with people, meaningful connections. You have to be proactive in your approach of how you're going to do it. You know, you're not going to just get an email in your inbox going, "Hi, I'm from XYZ company and I'm going to offer you this much money. Can you start on Monday?" Like, that's not going to happen. I mean, if it does, I really want to hear your story. But you've got to be proactive to make it happen. And even to go a deeper level than that, that's about life, right? I mean, are we going to be reactive to life, which again, I think would be exhausting, as opposed to being proactive? What do you want it to look like? And what do I want to accomplish? And how do I, and they can be short term and long term, right? So I think this can go, as it will, in a very deep direction, because it applies in so many different ways just by, getting up in the morning. Am I going to be proactive about making today the best day it can be? Or am I just going to be reactive and let life happen to me? So I think we can take this in a lot of interesting directions. What are your thoughts, Danny?
I have lots of thoughts. Whenever I take part in these sessions with Don and yourself, my head's always full of lots of ideas as these come up. First thing that pops into my head is the active part of both reactive and proactive implies that you have to get off your backside and do something. It requires action in your own part. And many people believe that they're proactive because they've made a choice to do something, whether that's join this session or change the way, as I think it was Justine that said, change the way that you apply for roles. But true proactivity for me, you have to know where you're going. To use Don's analogy of do you want to start on defense or do you want to score the goal at the touchline? Well, you need to know where the touchline is, and then you can adapt your approach. So going and finding a mentor is not going to solve the issues unless you know why you have the mentor, what you're trying to achieve. Applying for 500 extra jobs a day is not going to get you a job unless you know what type of job do you want. And it's that definitive action, active part of the word that's probably the most important is what's come into my head.
Well, I think being prepared and knowledge allows for proactivity, right? Usually confusion, curiosity, you don't know what to do sometimes. And you think you know things, but you're not sure enough. I mean, like if you had an electrical issue in your house, you'd be best served not to touch it if you weren't an electrician, right? So I think if you can add knowledge, but here's the thing that the whole universe has expanded dramatically just in the last few years. And with AI, it's just going to multiply even faster, is you don't need to look for one. You could tie into many. And that's why collaboration groups, training groups, working groups, why talk and then leave and go off and do something that you're just not that excited by, and it's really not paying you. It's different. You made a lot of money, you put up with a lot of stuff. Now you put up a lot of stuff, you don't make anything on LinkedIn, right? If all you do is plug into it and then plug out of it. Just post and go. Yes, it's the takeaways that you apply. And that's what makes you proactive. I just learned something just now. Let me apply it while it's fresh and while I believe in it. And I think that's the key, is the transference from conversation to activity to some level of achievement. And then you go pick up another nugget. It's like mining, right? The person panning for gold is finding so much every day, but they got to pan every day to get it. And the same thing with this is like, okay, people had excuses. I didn't know. No one told me. And if LinkedIn is so important, has everybody read all the LinkedIn rules, right? And what it is that's good and bad? Because I'm seeing people getting tossed off like,
oh yeah,
all the time. And they're like the most surprised person in the world. And some of them are the nicest, but they didn't know. So the point is knowledge is power. Proactivity is based on confidence and courage, and confidence based on knowledge. I mean, if you got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, it's like 1 and 1 will always be 2, right? And that's how sure you are about certain things you do, right? And I think that's the key to being proactive, is getting outside of yourself. I mean, if this was the last day of your life, how much fear would you have about doing anything? right? Yeah, everything you're worried about, what would you care about? Because you'll make it through the day. And, that's the point, is challenge yourself at the end of the day to be accountable to yourself.
Mhm.
And that breeds proactivity, because if you said, well, what'd you do today? Nothing. And the answer is yes. What are we going to do tomorrow? It's like kids in the car saying, where are we going? Let's have some fun. Let's go to an amusement park or something. So, I mean, you got to grant yourself that. But before we get too deep into this, let me cover some comments. We are part of the pack, but I am me and will always be that first. You have to be. To be proactive, it's really tough to follow someone else, right? Because when they stop, it stops you. Only when you're at the front of yourself and you're leading your own parade does it become happy. And you never know where you can take it. Natalie's here. Natalie will be here soon. Actually, tomorrow, I believe, with Christy. I'm trying to keep it straight. Nicole says we need to make our own opportunities sometimes and help somebody else make theirs while you're making theirs.
Yeah.
You ever bake more brownies than you can eat, and you're glad someone's there to eat them with you or take them home with them? If you can lift yourself and you got a little bit more time and effort, bring somebody into it, because that's how the proactive works for you. And then you got to work it for someone, for them to come back and work it from you. And maybe you got 10 of these little ratcheting up situations, and it's just what you need. As Sheaf says, visionary, the mind thinks in images, imagination. And, if you're capable, you should take advantage of that. Taking care of business, as Sheaf says, oh, here's Leslie. Proactive to me means that I am the one. Yeah, you're the only one sometimes. And you got to be the best one for yourself until someone shows up. And I think people don't give themselves enough credit with being proactive with themselves, right? I'm going to take a walk. I don't care what that means, or I need to eat right now, and that's going to have to come first. So anyways, I believe it's back to Kelly.
Yeah. So, so many great thoughts. And what both of you just said, spurred a few things. And what a few of the comments is, in the word itself, it has active. So you've got to be doing something. It can't just be, I want to have a job by the end of this month and it's stuck on the wall somewhere, unless you're actively doing something and focused. And then I think that's what, Danny was saying. So to go off of that, you've got to be focused on actually achieving it and hold yourself accountable. And again, when you do, it's not going to be a clear path. And it is that whole thing of, we've got to learn to pivot and move. And I think that's personally what I've always loved about the startup environment, because it's not something that's yet created. So you've got to be creative and innovation. Like I love looking at, I've always looked at obstacles as new ways to come up with innovative solutions. It's not a blockade. It's just like, oh, let's figure out how we're going to do this. So I think a component is definitely to be focused, and then to go to community, because another thing, and I think it was Danny that also said, when we feel safe, confident, supported, we're more apt to go for that goal, to be more focused. And that goes back to community here, whether it is, and I have to do a little bit of a shout out, Mike Ashenbranner, when he said on Monday about the combo of the Hounds and Hour of Empower, whether it was the Empowered Hounds or Hounds Power, but it was great. But that just goes to show communities overlap. It's like there's no competition between the community. It's like, how can we help each other? And to give people more support so they can be proactive with whatever their goal is, whether it is trying to find a job or just to figure out how the heck to work LinkedIn, because it's changed since they've been on here. How do I get involved? How do I do a LinkedIn live show? Like, I want to do one. Who can I talk to? It just depends on what your personal goal is, but you've got to do, again, action, stay focused, and find a community that can help support you to achieve that. Whether it is, people that are here on LinkedIn that you can reach out to, your friends, family, whomever, and find that path that gets you to that goal. Because I know everybody here wants everybody to win at no matter what they do. Nobody's like, oh, I don't want them to reach that goal. So I don't know. Those are just my thoughts, and how it really ties back with community, and how community does help us be more proactive because we feel supported, safe, and are more willing to take risk and dive through the fear, or diminish the fear that we create in our brain. Oh, this is going to be so difficult to get to that end goal. How the heck am I going to do it? And then just stop. Community is that little, I guess, supercharge. That gives us, yes,
You can do it. You can do it. Yeah.
Right. So, what are your thoughts now, Danny, as we dive into all of this?
Again, lots. So first of all, Don knows this. My consultancy is called Feargun, which is a Hebrew word, which means to take sincere delight in other people's accomplishments. So you're very much speaking my language. And the world, I think, would be a much better place if everybody... The phrase I use is everybody celebrates winners, but winners celebrate everyone. So how do you be a cheerleader? How do you realize that we're not, even if we're going for the same job, even if we work in the same industry, we're not competitors, we're rivals. And that kind of iron sharpens iron. I've got to up my game to keep pace with you, rather than I'm going to trip you up so that I win that way. And that's the beauty of a community. The second one, Ashif made a comment earlier on that the mind thinks in images. Obviously, I'm a psychologist, so I've got to challenge some of these. Some people's minds think in images, but everybody sees the world differently. Everybody processes it differently. Don said, sometimes you've got to accept that 1 + 1 = 2. What if I told you that 1 + 1 = 10? Which it does if you code in binary. But if we only view the world in one way, then you don't realize the beauty that everybody else can bring to the world through their unique superpowers and their unique gifts. And sometimes we have to open ourselves up and get out of our own ways to let communities flourish.
I think that's perfect. And, what we're building is art here. This is so creative because it's in the moment. It's first thing comes to mind and has to be said, or you're sitting there not saying anything. And more importantly, if you can redefine one word, you could redefine sentences and paragraphs and stories to say, if I just took more time to appreciate where this person is coming from and focus on intention instead of delivery, right? Because some people aren't that polished, but you can actually say, what did you mean by that? What were you expecting me to respond to something like that? And that creates a conversation, right? And conversations get understanding, or it's like, I still don't agree, but I understand at least a little bit more. You haven't swayed me, but I see that, hey, there was no ill intent, and you're learning, right? And I think in a way you have to use words in ways that, like Danny just said, aren't typically used, because in some ways you almost have to be humbly elite instead of star elite, right? Where you can really show yourself as being empathetic, a leader in empathy, humility, meeting people where they are and enjoying them for who they are and where they are. You don't have to adopt them. You don't have to take them home. You don't have to ever see them again. And you probably won't, right? But what are you going to spend your time with people doing? Showing them how big you are, how strong you are, and then giving them charity. I mean, that seems like a slap and a slap with a few bucks in between. So, my sense is proactive is, like Danny says, getting up, going somewhere, wherever that is.
Intentionally.
Yeah, leave your place. Go out of your place, walk somewhere, take a bus somewhere, come back somewhere. It doesn't matter. You're in movement now. You're seeing new things. You're around new people. Don't wait for the result to come before you make your first effort at it. And the other thing is find the group that will accept you for who you are and again, being proactive in a community group is like, don't wait for someone to serve you. Get to the front of the line, say, what can I do here? What can I help here? How can I make a difference here? Because if you're in a group, everybody's watching what's going on with everybody. Not everybody's saying it, but people know when you come, they know when you go, they know what you do when you do what you do. You know, how are you showing up? Are you serious? And I think that's a determination on proactive. Well, they made an effort, but they weren't going to do it. You know, they quit for a day. You know, they decided they wouldn't eat spinach for a meal, and you know, now they're done with it. It is really, like I say, the commitment, the intent, and the authenticity, because you can't live a lie. You don't want to be putting on masks for different people in different ways. You'll never keep up with it, and people will see it for what it is in time. So that's what I'm suggesting. And actually, I force myself to be proactive. It's so easy to lean back on something you have or built. But if you know it can't sustain itself and it's good, it's great, but it needs to get better, because now 50 people are eating at the table, right? When you're out there catching one person's meal one day, you know, and now 50 people have to eat and want to eat more because they're getting stronger, smarter, better too. What's the next step? And that's really one of the keys to proactive, is where do you take all this stuff? Because when I look around LinkedIn Live and I look at the people, and, you know, when we talk about the Hounds or we talk about anybody's group, the thing that gives everybody free passage is the goodness in them. Mm-hmm. You know, Nicole, there's so many people from the Hounds here, and there's so many people here over there, and why not? Right? If you like TV at 8 o'clock, wouldn't you like TV at 10 o'clock? Right. You know, if you like this personality, why not see them and mix them up and have everybody get the blend, you know, because the part of community is really coming together, right? Getting out of your seats and participating in whatever it is, a choir, a banquet, you know, and get involved. And if there's people who are getting involved and being accepted, you know, I've got so many more people coming on the show because I'm seeing who is everybody now, that before I saw as a connection, now I'm thinking as a thought leader. So let's not forget the audience, and that's so easy to do when we get so caught up in this.
It's busy in the notes. It is busy.
Before we left off, Leslie can eat all the brownies. No need to have somebody there when you bake them. Petra is here. Good morning. Petra has a great story. You know, I call her Ashley too. Rashida's here. Good evening, host. Very big hi from Antwerp. Great to see you. We've got so many European friends. Sarah Dawkins in Spain. Harvey Tuck in England. Danny today from England. So, you know, it doesn't matter where you're from, what your culture is. Proactivity is a valued benefit in every society. Leslie comes back with, if you think it, you can do it. If you do it, you'll know it. That's the better thing about thinking about it, is once you do it, you either know it or you think about what to do next. Nicole says cross-pollination. You know, it's like anything else, the more exposure, you know, if you're cooking a steak, you got to flip it eventually, you know, or you're just going to be like halfway one way and halfway the other way, and both ways probably aren't as good as they could be with a flip. Natalie says, I've become more proactive recently as I joined a few beautiful communities. It's one thing to join a team, but you don't want to stay in the bleachers. You want to jump in the game and connect one-on-one with the people you see who could be a collaborator. Why not? Because if this is what you always look for and you found it, now it's your turn, right? If someone gives you a ticket and someone takes it and admits you to the stadium, it's your turn to get to the escalator and get to your seat, right? You can't have it all. I always want to start my own podcast, and you should, because it's so easy if you get with the right people. And that's what the next step is I'm going to come up with training that can get people up to scratch, take the fear away from, am I doing this right? And it's so easy because you can compare what you were doing to what you could be doing soon, like immediately. and measure the response based on what LinkedIn gives you as analytics, right? So it should be within a week to see huge improvement. Rashida says, working proactively is not always appreciated. I have experienced lately. Luckily, my line of work allows me to be and act proactive and take risks, no fears whatsoever. You know, it's hard enough to think of something, let alone getting permission to do it.
Just do it. Just dwelling on that point. If you give money to somebody that's homeless, so in the UK, we've had a real reduction on cash. Lots of people don't carry cash anymore. So what started to happen with homeless people is people will go into the shops and buy them food, buy them coffees, etc., rather than giving them cash. And sometimes there can be a reaction that that's not what this person wanted or not what they needed. That shouldn't stop you giving money or doing good deeds for those that need it. That's a reflection on you. If the environment you're in doesn't let you be proactive, that's a reflection on them. Don't stop doing you. Don't fit in. Keep doing you.
Oh, that's a great point, Kelly.
I was just saying amen to that. Like, I mean, so many ways that proactive can go in, because are we proactively servant leaders, giving back to the community? And like you said, it's so important to remember that. And even if it is about job seeking and you've had a bad experience with someone because of how they treated you, like, why did you reach out to me for a job? However, because I've heard some bad stories, of course, because there's always going to be bad stories, because there's people out there that are miserable and it's about them and how they treat you. It has nothing to do with you. So I think a great point there is to don't get derailed by that. And that is when you go back to your community and, be like, hey, I got a little wound here and I'm feeling a little bruised. I need some more energy to get back, which this to me is what the Hour of Empower is every morning. It is getting you recharged, whether you think you need it or you don't think you need it, or you need it. It just helps you reset. And that is a proactive thing. You're taking action on your own life, because when you're energized and feeling good about yourself, and it goes back to the whole thing of feeling confident, safe, and secure, you're going to go face the day differently. It's just a fact. So I think it's beautiful that it's all coming back about community and how we do support one another and being the cheerleaders for everyone, which is one of the things I love the most about this community, about the Hounds. They support one another. Nobody's in competition. Everybody is 100% cheerleading for everybody else. And it just is like, God, that's so great. And everybody needs that, because we're all going through something at some point and need a little energizing or a little cheerleader to be like, you got this. And it's okay that you're in your proactive mode trying to achieve a goal and you're focused on it, but you hit a bad hurdle and it's knocked you on your bum and you don't know how to get back up. Reach out to somebody. They'll help you up and get back over it. So I think it's even important and granted, this has been a topic actually that's come up quite a bit lately, talking about mental health. And of course, the job market for so many people is such a struggle. They're not just being out of work for, a week or two, it's months. And some people are well over a year. And in some instances, it's about the being proactive about reaching out for help. How difficult that is for so many people to say, I need help with this, whatever that may be, because for some reason we as humans think that's showing a sign of weakness, or I'm going to be embarrassed because people are going to know, like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent at the end of the month, and I'll be ashamed. But it's a reminder, because every person that I've been talking to in other shows that I've been watching that have been addressing this topic, how often have you ever, anyone close to you, or if you can, that reaches out and is like, I need help, that you can't wait. Oh my gosh, what can I do for you? It's the same for you. And to someone recently that said, when they got to a place where they needed help, they finally reached out after a very long time. And it was at a critical point that they were amazed by how many hands were reaching back. And those are the things that you go, oh, and as the person who was being proactive and saying, I need help, particularly for your mental health, and feeling that sense of, God, I can exhale and look at how many people are here for me. And why didn't I do this sooner is usually where most of us would go in that situation. Um, but it's just it's an important reminder, for all of us, because we all need help at some point with something. Um, so what are your thoughts on that little twist there, Danny?
So, as you might expect, I always have two thoughts. The first one is I 100% agree. Vulnerability is a privilege. Most people think of vulnerability as I'm showing my soft underside and I've got the shame and the fear that's attached to it. But actually, it's a privilege for the person that you're asking.
Yes.
And often when you ask for help, the people will say, you don't even need to ask. I would be upset if you didn't ask. So vulnerability needs reframing anyway. The second thing around the proactivity, we tend to view things like, if I take the example that Christine had around her job, you apply for a job and you get ghosted or you don't get the job. You can either have a bit of a wallow and then go and find your tribe and have a cuddle. That's one option. Another option is, why don't you try and stand out from the crowd with the hiring manager? Send them an article saying, I had a really great interview with you. I'm looking to hear about what the outcome is. I saw this article and I thought it might interest you. You're proactively taking control of your future, or at least the bit you can control. You can't control how they'll react. You can't control if you get the role, but that will be far more proactive than just the cuddle. And you still got that. So that's my two thoughts. Vulnerability is a privilege for everybody involved and everybody wins. But proactivity is not just about finding your tribe and feeling good. That's an important part. But there are things that we can do to kind of open ourselves up and get out of our own way a little bit.
Well said. And I think the point that sticks out to me the most is so many people are trying what isn't working and they try harder at it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a saying, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing when you keep getting doors never opening and you look around, there's thousands just like you sitting there and no one's getting in. Open your own door. And then people are asking people who have never been in that situation, and they're asking people who don't know anything but a better way of going through the door that never opens, versus a new way, which is, don't wait for doors, be your open door, be the key, and get on shows like this. And if not, I tell people all the time, if I was sitting home waiting for someone to call me who I know probably won't and never has, I would get in front of the computer and just start talking like this 8 hours a day on LinkedIn Live. And I'd have a show and it wouldn't be about, I need a job, I'm out of work. It would be, here's who I am. I want to get together with people who can relate to a person like me. Let them determine who you can be and what you are, and then look at it and you be the chooser, right? You're putting yourself out there. You say, I have this, this, and this, and I know I can apply it to so many things. Is someone looking for an honest, hardworking, good person? Do that 8 hours a day, and you'll get accepted just for perseverance, just for showing up. And that's the thing, is a lot of people, honestly, it's hard to realize, aren't worthy. They're really not qualified to do what they thought they could do, right? They don't know how to project a positive personality on an interview. They haven't met the person or the group that can show them that everybody's capable once they have confidence. And that's why, two things: don't be by yourself. You're the worst person you could be with when you're in the worst situations you find yourself in, right? So don't be alone. Go to anywhere where people congregate, right? A library would be a good place, a church, a barbecue, anything going on in the city this week. And the next thing is get with someone who's been there, done that, and you say, if they can do it, I can do it. Or come into a group, because you know what will happen? This is like square dancing, and it's like when partners keep switching to everybody else. Eventually, if you get in the flow, someone will toss you over to somebody who can help you or get involved. And here's the thing, when other people are working on your behalf, you start working harder on your behalf.
Yes.
Right? Because, hey, if they're promoting me, I got to show up or they're going to stop promoting me. And not only that, if you ever get a job, like Cindy did a couple weeks ago, everybody was a hooray, right? We got a lifeboat over there, and that's the key, is like, hey, everybody's a sentinel, everybody's on the lookout, and everybody's looking after each other. And that would be the next gratification, is everybody just says, hey, I can do LinkedIn, and LinkedIn's doing it for me. Right? It's getting me the work I need, the clients I need. It's giving me the brand recognition and all that. And now, to Kelly's point, I can teach other people, right? And help them grow, and it's working. So with that, we'll turn it right back but we got to get these comments. The only reason I keep some on the board is to give me a reference of where I last stopped. So here we go, Natalie. Okay. Petra, never give up and refuse to fail. Why not? You can stop, but you shouldn't be backing up or falling down.
Failure gets a bad rap. Experience is what you get when you don't get what you wanted.
Right? I mean, I think it's Leslie that says that failure is feedback. 100%. It's just a little report card. I mean, and that goes back to all about mindset, right? How we take things. And I think, to go to your point, Danny, too, it is, community. Granted, sometimes we need a coddle just for whatever reason, but you're right. Don't stay there. Like, light a fire under yourself, and because we need to be our own cheerleaders too. And it is about, that whole thing about knock me down 7 times, I'm getting up 8. You're never defeated, and you've got to, find your fire. And what gets you motivated. If you're sitting and you have this goal, but you're just kind of like, oh, I can't even move forward. There's something that's not correct there, because you're not feeling excited about it. If it's something you really want, you go for it, and you do try something different and outside of the box. I think people sending, if people don't know this, you can send audio messages through LinkedIn. Send an audio message to a hiring manager if you don't want to do a live. I know that lives sound scary to some people. When I first did it, admittedly, I was like, "Oh gosh, what if I screw up?" Like I was afraid of that. But that's so silly, because none of this obviously is scripted. But it was like, well, how can you screw up at being yourself? Like if I fumble on something, then so what? It just makes me more human. It has nothing to do with not saying what you want people, that you think what people want to hear. And we can get stuck in that. And I feel, to me anyways, LinkedIn Lives and doing this kind of format and watching other shows, it just really does build your confidence and go, you know what? I don't have to be worried about what comes out of my mouth all the time. Or gosh, I find myself, my mind is expanding so much just by listening to other people, reading comments. And I think the word of the day, the focus, and I know I've said this before, is it opens our minds to everyone else. And you hit on this earlier, Danny, is one word, and look at how many different meanings or how many different angles we can take to that. And being curious about how other people perceive that, or what their interpretation is. Be like, wow, I didn't think of that, but why did you? Like, what led you to that? And not judging, like, well, that's weird. Why would you think that? I think it's fascinating, because it then puts me more into the mindset of, it's one word. Now think of it in the context of when people write a sentence or a post, is be curious about, God, I wonder what they really were thinking when they put this together, as opposed to, well, wow, I'm kind of offended that they looked at it or that they wrote it this way. Well, did they? Or is that just your interpretation because of maybe your mood or something else? So I do think there is a proactivity in some way of being open-minded to other thoughts and not being closed-minded. Um, I don't know. What do you think about that part, Danny?
I speak in metaphors and analogies quite a lot, and the one that springs to mind is there's a learned helplessness sometimes when we have a knockback and we kind of get in our own heads, or we seek out people that are going to reinforce the belief that they're there, and we start to label ourselves with that. I'm not confident. I'm not quite good enough. I don't have the experience. And the metaphor I'll use is Superman doesn't tell people he's allergic to kryptonite.
Yeah.
Don't point out the things that you feel are your kryptonite, because they're probably not. Nobody else has noticed it. Sometimes I'll say it again, we have to get out of our own way and realize that we're all special in our own way. You need to know what you're special at. What value do you add? That's just a rule for life. If you know what you can add, then you've got your direction. You can become proactive in how you approach each little step towards that.
Yeah, I think when you tie it all together, what we're doing on the show, and specifically with Proactive, we're formulating between ourselves. Even gold is a liquid when you heat it up until it settles. So it means there's a lot of wiggle room here and adjustments that will take place before it does settle. But I think to Kelly's point, this whole exercise every day expands your mind in its thinking, because it forces you to think about things you never would have planned. Like I would have never planned I'm going to talk about Proactive with 40, 50 people today and have no idea where it's going, but I always know it always lands safely. And that's all you have to know. Like that idea with the aspirin, why do you take it? Or what does it do? You swallow it and it works. But let's get back to
we have to stop interrupting the comments.
It's so great. That's the beauty of it. If people are eager to throw in their thoughts while they get fresh, because once somebody says something else, well, that's a great idea. Now I'm switching to this. So Jeff says what we need is synergy. So 1 + 1. For sure, if we all come together to help each other, we can all change the world and the views that people have. And you know what? It requires a sense of urgency to be proactive, right? You're the most proactive when a lion's chasing you, right? You're not thinking about, will I do it tomorrow? Will I run? Will I escape? It's like, hey, game on. And you got to be ready to run. I truly believe in this power. It's leverage. That's what we're dealing with. Getting out and about, helping others succeed means the world to me. We're already here. We already have dreams. We already have ability and time. How do we harness it? How do we bring it together and make it go forward? We got to move to the next gear. Rashida says, in a group, everybody wants to be heard, but sadly, not everybody knows how to portray what it is they want to make clear to others. And, that's why the tagline is comment and be honored. I'm encouraging people to be recognized and recognize yourself. You're here. You took the time. If you're not participating, you're at least receiving, right? And that in itself is valuable. Linda says, I know my life put out information in my journey to give me the understanding of sharing and showing how to help and encourage others. Those are the fondest memories when you help somebody do something they could have never done without you. And it's not because they're going to take care of you. It's just because it shows you have goodness inside of yourself and you demonstrated it. Not just I am. It's like what you do with I am. Petra says, thank you, Don. Wouldn't miss your show in the world. And I just know when people come, even when they don't say anything, their energy speaks for themselves, and just knowing they're in the room. Petra comes back with, yes, you said it perfectly. Nicole, who said they wanted to start a podcast, DM me. Yeah, Nicole's that's
Yes.
you have so many experienced people. Get to know Nicole. Why not? Especially when she just invited you. Right now, there's no excuse because everybody say, remember I was on the show, invited everybody. And, I'll tell you, 95% people, for whatever reason, don't do it. But they'll go out and try to contact a stranger to have a phone call. Will never lead to anything. Paul's here, grateful to be here. Always good to see you, Paul. Paul's everywhere. Frank's been showing up lately. A wonderful young man. Had a chance to talk with Frank. Yes, I have noticed that buying the homeless person what they need instead of giving them cash. Well, it is something. You know, it's not it's money. It's tangible. You know, that they can feel. No one knows unless you speak up. And I realize through grinding the scrolls to LinkedIn, that's what's good for you is usually good for a community of other people. You should totally do the podcast, Ashley. Petra comes back with, I know I need the empower. Your show is like an addiction. I know I have to have my empowerment fix in the morning. And, you know, what comes around goes around. That's the beauty of it, is it works. You know, and that's it's not like a philosophy that one day may show up. Rashida says, I've been silenced or tried to, and when explaining my case, presenting them with cold, hard facts, they had to admit that my way of approaching a difficult situation is worth the while. So now when there's a problem or a difficult situation, and I'll read the rest of it, they come look for me and ask my input or my point of view on the matter. Appreciation came with time. I couldn't be more content at work. Well, that's part of being proactive and taking the challenge, the bull by the horns and making things happen, because people see you doing that. All of a sudden they respect you, right? Hey, this person got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they started to show up, everybody's got a limit, and everybody should demonstrate where their limit is when they hit it. Jeff says, Kelly has been lifting me up for a couple of months now since I've been laid off. Can't say thank you enough to her and Christy. That's so beautiful, because that's what makes it worth doing.
Yes.
It's success along the way, not just at the final result. And you know what? Respecting, appreciation, people on your team, right? Who are giving you that tailwind and that support. Pride often holds us back from asking for help, for sure. Sheaf says, sometimes our stop doing list needs to be longer than our to-do list. Here we got Paul with a comment. Anytime I'm feeling down, I lean into service and gratitude, because I'll tell people try being down and sad about it. Comes back with, every time someone comes to me for help, I don't ever say no, because I know how much courage it is to ask if I can help them. I'll find them someone who can. Moving to, here's a big one. Linda, I'm glad and blessed to have a great group in my whole company that does the same, all working to help others, even if not receiving benefits, and seeing all working to touch lives, even across the country and world too, and have seen the backbiting, I'm sure. And Rita's here. Rita's just great. Rita was here the last 2 days, actually. Great to see you, Rita. Paul, or you can send a personalized video. Okay. Thousands of people, tell them happy birthday. Yeah, that's true. Be innovative, be creative, because that reflects on who you are and how you do things. And people want creative, innovative people, proactive people. Late Glenn, never too late, Beverly. Beverly's just coming back next Tuesday. Every time you communicate with someone, you open yourself to the possibility of learning something new. It was that extra second that you waited, that extra word that you wanted to hear, that allowed you to continue. And how many people, you go to a lecture with someone, and right about the time that person at the stage is about to say something the person next to you needs to hear, they decide to go outside and make a phone call. It's just a lot of it is timing, perseverance, tenacity. I learned a couple days, a weakness is an overused strength. What got you here won't get you there. Yeah, there's so many variations. Let me see. Natalie says, so well said. Getting excited about what you are creating is key to becoming proactive. Become aware of your inner fight, because that'll get you through the days when you're having fun and it's exciting. You say, I can do it another day. It's only when it's boring, tedious, frustrating that lends itself to that. Purpose and passion move us forward, for sure. Beverly, agreed. Intrinsic motivation pushes us forward. Sheaf comes back with making a difference makes a difference.
Yes.
Rohit says proactive is similar to the Scout model, be prepared. Wow, we caught up finally. Kelly, what's your thoughts at this point?
Well, several. First of all, I mean, Jeff, just your comment honestly teared me up, because one of the things and the other thought I had about proactive going into this is we've been saying it's on a focus of a goal. Sometimes you don't necessarily know what that goal is. And my example is going to be this show. And everyone knows I'm a woman of faith and I believe in the power of prayer. And I was feeling a little bit stuck and like needed more in my life. And I'm like, I know I'm supposed to be doing more with my purpose. I just didn't know what that looked like. And I prayed on it, and I was on the phone the next day with Don having a call, and he was like, I've got an opening on my live 2 days from now. Would you want to be on? And I just thought, sure. Inside I was a little bit, nervous because, again, live, but then did it, loved it. And I just kept being guided to continue to do it. And now Don and I can both say, I started doing this in January. The show has changed quite a bit since. But the process of going through this and watching, what's resonating with people, what's bringing them, when do they comment more, when are they not commenting, and coming to the whole thing of this is just a community where it is about support, safety, it's a no judgment zone, and it's all based in love, and that communicates anywhere. It doesn't matter what's happened in any of our lives. Those are things that we all need. And so I'm saying that because my goal was being proactive of I'm trying to live louder in my purpose. And I also am looking to expand because I just felt this need. I'm like, I need to grow. Like this is a growth portion of my life that I need to take advantage of in some way. So I think being proactive, again, I didn't know what the end goal was. I didn't have one. I just knew I needed to do something and wanted to put out more positivity in the world and help someone. And Don and I have talked about this a lot too, is like, if we help one person, job done. And I can't even begin to tell you, there's been some messages that both of us have received, and even Jeff's message in the comments. It's like, that's what it is. I mean, and I would do this, like Don says, that's the motivation for every day for Don. I have no idea, because all he wants to do is help as many people as he can. What words does someone need to say that is on the fray that's not in the comments? Because they don't necessarily want to be seen, but I promise you that it's making a difference. And your comments make a difference to someone, because someone will sit back and go, oh God, thank God I'm not alone. I thought it was just me. And it's just so important to feel like I just belong somewhere, or I don't feel alone. And that's even a bigger message that's here, is you're not alone, and you can reach out to people. I mean, I've been reached out to, and to go back on what you said earlier, Danny, I feel it's a gift to me when someone reaches out and says, hey, I'm struggling. Can we have a chat? Of course. Or if they just want a message back and forth, and I've done that too. That is a privilege that someone has trusted. I'm feeling in this place and I don't know how to get out. Thank you for encouraging me. So there I kind of took the proactive of not necessarily having a goal, but knowing what you want to do on a bigger level, perhaps.
I mean, I think that is outstanding, and it's so authentic and real. And what I love about this show is feelings are palatable, right? I mean, words are words, but when they can now transform a person into something more visceral, right? When you're talking about proactive, when you get your whole self into it, and that was the word the other day, undeniable, you can't be denied. Right. When you're just single focused and say, who do I got to talk to next? Where do I got to go? It's like climbing the ladder wherever you're at. An organization like, well, who do I take this to first? So I got a better shot of getting to that person next. And everybody's got gatekeepers, and a lot of them are themselves. Yes. Where they say, you're not ready yet. You're not good enough yet. And yet never shows up. Yet is always going to be a missing piece that's going to give you that continuing excuse. And what you'll do is be proactive in locking yourself behind your own door and then blaming the rest of the world or somebody else for it. And then you're stuck because now you're not liquid anymore. You're solid. And I think you got to start at the gas part even before you get to the liquid part, which is the more ethereal part, the more I can't see it, but I know it's their part, or it's not here, it never was, but it's coming. And I just know it. When you get to that point where I just know it, proactivity just falls right into place. It's like, how can you stop not going fast down a steep hill, right? I mean, when you got that momentum. And the other thing is, if we're working with magic here, which I do believe LinkedIn Live is, this vehicle is so incredible in what allows us to do for nothing. If this was CBS or ABC, we'd be paying forever, or Google, but since it's unproven, the people who can now go out and show it, not just use it. What we're using is a small part, which is the communication aspect. What we need to do is the aggregation part, the plan part. And that's the other part about being proactive. Have a proactive plan. Proactive doesn't mean spontaneous. It means keep moving forward, keep moving harder, but you got to have a plan. Where am I going before I take off? And when do I know I'm there? And then who do I need to get me there? Right? If you need to take a plane, you're not thinking about taking pilot lessons and buying a plane and eventually figuring out how to get there, right? You're going to leverage off of what's there for you. So a lot of it is accountability. A lot of it is responsibility. But, ask yourself, what would really make me excited tonight when I go to sleep? What could I do between now and then to say, boy, I did something special. I did something important. May not have made me any money, but there's people like Harvey who go out of their way beyond to get people exposure, to get people's job. And it isn't like a throwaway to him. It's a passion. And if I was looking for somebody, I would say, give me a passionate, innovative, imaginative, exciting person to start with, right? Check those boxes. And then I'll ask them where they went to school, what do they know to do? And in most cases in today's world, you're better off knowing nothing and starting fresh instead of unlearning, getting off of your high horse because of what you were or what someone thought you were. And where are you today? Mm-hmm. Yesterday's gone. You can take pride in it. But how'd you get there? You had to learn, you had to grow, you had to go through things. It isn't going to get any different, but the difference is you'll be your own person. You'll be able to be proactive anytime you want. And if you fail, and one thing about failure, first of all, it's your judgment only that considers a failure. But even so, failure isn't final. And final isn't future. So yeah, if you lost the game 9-6, you'd have to say, well, we came up three runs short. But hey, there's another game tomorrow, that we can win and we can learn from this game. So I know we just flew past top of hour. I want to give Danny a chance to really relate to where we were at the beginning, where we are now. What's his thoughts?
I get to do a wrap up. So when I worked in the corporate world, one of the things that annoyed me was people that were super, super busy, couldn't get any time in their calendar. And we often confuse proactivity with busyness, and it's very easy to be a busy fool. Yes. Knowing where you're going, even if your goal is ambiguous, your vision shouldn't be. Roughly where you're heading, even if you don't know the measurable steps. Getting up every day with intent, getting out of your own way and doing things on purpose to get you just a little bit closer to what it is you want to achieve, and you can't go wrong.
You really bring concise to the table. So, I got to give you credit, Danny. And what's so an honor to have Kelly and Danny is they are organizational specialists. You know, they've gone into organizations, dealt with culture, dealt with environment. And really what we're talking about is a culture of proactivity,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're going to run faster when you run with faster people.
Yeah.
You know, when everybody's getting busy and everybody's doing it, now you're starting to stick out like a sore thumb. And either you got to come to the realization you're trying to say and do something you're not, and then come back down and at least be authentic at that level. But I think too, when people are running fast, they don't mind running with someone else that's slower if they can help. Right?
Iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron. You know?
Yeah, and it shows, hey, I can run a little slower if I would make this person run a little bit faster with me, you know, and I can show some grace. And that's where the humility comes in. Too many people, when they had to ask for help, had to be there on their knees, you know, and hope someone granted them something instead of meeting them as a peer, as a human. And that's the beauty of a word. Everybody can get around a 7-letter word at the beginning, right? It equalizes everybody at that point. So Kelly, final thoughts and words. I mean, it's just great when we start blending all of us together and then blending it with the audience, and it comes out to be just a beautiful dessert.
Yes, love it. I mean, I always love it because you start and you never know where it's going to end or what twists and turns it's going to take along the way. And again, just opens your mind. Thanks everyone for being here today. And I just want to remind everyone, connect with the people that are in the chat. Because everybody's vetted here. I just feel in some way. And if you need anything, reach out. I say this a lot too. We're not here because we're private people. We mean it when we say it. If you need anything, reach out. If you can't do it, like Dawn says, if you can't do it, we can. So please do that. And I will end like I always end. Please go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
So great. Nice to end on that note. And with that, we will come back tomorrow. We'll have Christy, Natalie, and myself. We've just got great shows going through next week. So again, have a wonderful day. Be proactive in anything that will lend itself to say, I did something proactive today. And another thing, to Kelly's point, reach out to all these people. I've had conversations with all of them. When you have a conversation lined up today or this week, it's something to look forward to. And when you're done with it, you give yourself credit for making that move, you know. And I challenge anybody, if you approach anybody in a respectful way, they will find the time, right? It'll be maybe on their time, but they'll find the time because they don't want to be the one to say, you know, well, I hope it doesn't get out that I tell everybody to call me, and when they do, I don't want to talk to them. So with that laugh, we are gone. Take care. Thank you so much for being here.